When you open R, this is what you see. It's called the RGui, that's short for R Graphical User Interface, and it sounds a bit more fancy than it actually is, because the graphical part is really only a few buttons here and a few drop-down menus with a very limited number of commands available. And there are other editors available, for example the RStudio, which gives you much more of a graphical user interface, but in this course we'll use the native RGui for simplicity and also because it's better suited for small screens, I think, like on your laptops. When you start your RGui, you see this window here. It's called the Consol, and that's where you communicate with R. So anything you write here will be interpreted by R, and then something clever will hopefully be returned. So if, for example, you write 1 + 1 and press enter, then R gives you a reply 2. And you see this 1 within brackets here, that's just telling you that 2 is the first element of a vector. So you don't have to worry about this one. Just focus on the 2 here. In principle, you could use the R console to perform all your statistical analysis or whatever you're doing, but that would probably not be a good idea, because when you write things in the console, they are not saved and you cannot repeat them easily. Or you can actually repeat the last thing you entered by pressing the up key, like this. Then you get 1 + 1. You could change that to 1 + 2, for example, if you're interested in that number. But when you're performing complicated and complex analysis, you would probably want to save the script and to be able to look at it at a later time, to repeat it or to make small changes to it and repeat it. And then you should use the editor instead. And to get access to the editor, you choose New Script from the File menu. And you get a new window here called the editor. So you have the console and the editor, and they overlap, as you see. And I usually use the tile vertically command here in order to get them in this position, but there are other ways of arranging them. And in the editor you can also write R code. For example, x = 7, and then ask for x + 1. And as you see, nothing happens here because you're only writing your script here, and to get it executed you need to highlight it and then press Ctrl R. That's in the Windows version. If you're using Mac, you would press Command Return instead. And when I press Ctrl R, as you can see, both these lines of code are sent to the console and executed. So here x gets the value of 7. 7 is stored in the variable x, and then x + 1 is executed and you get the result 8. Another way would be to press the right mouse button and then choose Run Line or Selection. It gives you the same result. Sometimes you would only like to run a single line or a specific part of the code, and then you can highlight just this line and run it. And actually it's sufficient if you have the cursor positioned somewhere on the line, then you only get that line executed. When you're satisfied with your script, you can save it by choosing Save in the File menu. And one thing you should be aware of is that these menus, they differ a bit between the editor and the console. So as you see, here are the menus for the editor, but if I'm clicking in the console, I get another set of menus. And this may be confusing sometimes when you don't find the menus you're looking for. Try clicking in the other window. If the console gets cluttered, then you can erase everything in it by pressing Ctrl L. That has no effect on for example, the variables you have defined, x is still 7, but you get a clean view here. When you're saving your script, you should remember that R, unlike a lot of other programs, doesn't give you the correct file ending by itself, but you have to enter it. So if you're calling this file example, then that would not be sufficient. You would have to write example.r. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to find your file later on, because R is only looking for .r files. And finally, when you're closing this window here, or the RGui, you get a question whether you should save the workspace image. And you may do that, but we recommend that you don't do it usually, because if you save the workspace, then you will have all the variables and data sets that you have loaded into memory. They will be there next time, and that might be a good thing if you're only working on one project. But if you're working on several projects in parallel, it could consume a lot of memory by keeping all the data sets from an unrelated project.